All right, hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy. We're here back with Matty B and Rick David. Matt's below me. Rick's in the top right where he normally is. And back once again, we haven't had him on for a while, Jeff Meyer. Jeff hosts a show through Southbound Sports called Spaces or Laces. It comes out every Thursday. I think I finally have the feed up. 100% my fault. I didn't have something with the image, so I got that fixed, and I think it's now live on iTunes and everything. So go ahead, subscribe, Spaces or Laces, and you're listening to the Southbound Sports Show. If you're not watching on Periscope, go ahead and download the podcast version. Any help you can give, tell your friends, whatever, we greatly appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and kick it off here. Construction is done in my studio. I just have to paint and do some other stuff. I did have a mishap. So I picked up my mic stand. I have like boom on it. It snapped right in half. I don't know what was weaker, my mic stand or Joe Theismann's leg in that Monday Night Football game like 30 years ago. Awful. So if my mic's a little weird, it's because I can't get as close to it as normal. So I apologize for that. We'll get that figured out. I'll have to probably get a replacement or whatever. This is going to be a sad show, just be honest, because this weekend sucked for sports. All around, college, professional teams. We're going to go ahead. We'll kick it off here. Actually, let's go high tempo. First, we'll go around the horn. Really, sports topics for the weekend. Nothing really shined for me, although being here in Raleigh, I did enjoy NC State's victory over Louisville last week. Normally, NC State blows a big game early on in the season to someone they shouldn't win. And they usually lose to ranked teams. So it's good to see them go out and get Louisville done. Now, that trap game, Pittsburgh, it's going to be big this weekend. It's homecoming for Pittsburgh. I hope they get it done. I would love to have a showdown with Clemson here in 2 weeks, I think, for homecoming for NC State. Definitely will do something for Southbound Sports at that tailgate because it's going to be a huge game as long as NC State continues to get work done. And we'll go ahead. Matt, anything for you this week?
One of the things I saw tonight's the home opener for Vegas. I was kind of interested. I saw that they're replacing the advertisements that are usually around their arena with the hashtag, I think, Vegas Strong or whatever it is. I thought that was kind of a nice thing to do to show support for that community after the incident out there. So I thought that was kind of cool that with having a new sports franchise that they're already connecting to the community and reaching out and trying to show support for them.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good movement. And I was kind of unsure how Vegas would be for professional teams. So hopefully their hockey team gets off to a good start. And I'm wondering what's going to be the next team added because they need to get to 32. I actually have a standings board, and it came with 2 extra slots, so I have to get a hockey mask for Vegas. And they're ready. They want to expand, so that'll be something to keep an eye on. Jeff, what about you for this week?
So my high-tempo topic for the week is Ryan Clark, Le'Veon Bell, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know if you guys saw that. Ryan Clark and Le'Veon Bell got in a little Twitter battle the other day on social media. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's worse right now. The Steelers I have no idea what's going on in the Steelers organization, that locker room right now. It seems like we have a lot of individuals and not a team. Big Ben, 5 picks last weekend. Ryan Clark calling out AB, saying he's selfish, and Le'Veon Bell attacking Ryan Clark. It is not good news for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I saw that. I think it's a little bit of immaturity on the Steelers' end, just to be honest. I think Ryan Clark, he got attacked basically unprovoked from what I saw. Le'Veon Bell just came at it. I think it's due to tensions in the locker room. You saw it bust over with Brown. We talked about it last week on the sideline. Now you have Le'Veon Bell. I really don't know. It's not good. And for them to lash out, I even saw Ike Taylor, like old Steelers are trying to get people. They're like, hey, get on the phone, talk it out. That's what they're going to do. And until that happens, we're going to see some more ass kickings, not in favor of the Steelers. Last one, Rick. Any topics for you this week?
Mine is going to be feeding into our first topic is the MLB playoffs. So we already have Houston in and Dodgers are already in. Both are already won their playoff and pretty decisively. They won both of them. One thing already, they're already talking about Red Sox rebuilding. It's a day after almost, and we're going to talk about a rebuild for Red Sox. It's called Mitch Moreland Sucks. It's why Texas Rangers brought Prince Fielder in for a year and a half until he gets injured, and they still don't want him back. The guy sucks. He runs slower than a dead cow, and he plays first base like a dead cow, and that's why you lost. You tried sending him around third, and he got thrown out by 48 feet because he's too fat, too slow, and not that productive. You're wasting big money, Red Sox, on bums who can't get it done, and they're past their prime. Moreland's done. You wasted money on Sandoval. You brought Price in, and he hasn't panned out to what your expectations. They thought they were going to get 30 wins out of him. Congratulations, you didn't, and you're hurting yourselves. You traded away too much of the farm. And if Red Sox want to copy somebody, copy your number one rival, the Yankees. Rebuilt their farm system and are making a run. They got young kids that know how to play, and they took guys that were top prospects out of other teams and made them starters who didn't pan out. Look at Aaron Hicks. That's one of the reasons why Minnesota Twins didn't last long. I look at Aaron Hicks as a very good defensive outfielder and a very good outfielder. Didn't work out well with them. Number one prospect, former with the Twins. And look, now he's helping the Yankees still here. And now we're stuck on a day like today because of a rain out. We're now having to play a game at 4 o'clock, 4:08. Great work on time frame. 4:08 on tomorrow. We're playing the Cubs Washington game, and then at 8:08 we got a Yankees Cleveland in the primetime game. So, Rich, I know this is going to feed into your topic. I understand MLB's decision. They want to stagger the game so you only watch one at a time. But let me tell you, on a Wednesday at 4 o'clock, I'm not able to watch this game because of my work hours. I know others are going to miss most of this game. I just feel it's kind of stupid on a Wednesday. It's different if it's on a weekend. But during the weekday, that's kind of stupid. I'd rather have one start at maybe 7 and one start at 9 or something like that. So at least where people are off and it's still prime time hours for ratings. So I just don't get it. So I'll let you take over because I know you want to talk more about it.
Yeah, we're going to get into that in a second. I wanted to start off just talking about the opening of the NHL season. Not a good start for our Pittsburgh Penguins. I know we were all hoping right after they won the Stanley Cup back-to-back years. I know they lost a lot of key players, but to come out, and I think it was the second game, and give up 10 goals to the Blackhawks, unbelievable. And it was disappointing. And I know they turned it around. Nashville probably has a good team. On Saturday, they were able to get the win. I'm hoping that was just an anomaly. I would hate to have them get content and be celebrating their Stanley Cup. I know they got their rings. I don't know if you guys saw them, but they were printed and they had the records on them. And I think they had like 3 diamonds for the 3 players that won the 3 cups. I think it was a Malkin, Crosby, and
Florian Lejeune.
Yeah, someone. They had the whoever was on all 3. They had an extra 3 diamonds on there, which I thought was a cool idea. But you're having a lot of celebrations from that, and then you go out and get your asses kicked against Chicago, which is unbelievable. I actually knew someone that went to the game, and they were saying that they went and got tickets. Tickets were fairly cheap. I think club tickets were like $20 in Chicago because they're having their own troubles there. And just going out there, let's go ahead and go around. What are you guys' hopes for the Penguins for the NHL this season? Because it just kicked off. We haven't talked about it before. We're going to be getting into it more, but we're not going to spend a lot of time on it this week just because college football was unbelievable. We'll go ahead with you, Rick. What do you think about the Penguins' chances this year?
I still think they have good chances. The Eastern Conference is good, but not as good as the Western Conference. I mean, you got teams that are up and coming, like Buffalo. Florida's still good. I mean, but there's a lot of teams that are not that good and are aging quickly. Rangers are already 1-2. Columbus had a great first half last year, stunk the second half, kind of limped into the playoffs because they had so many wins in that first half before the All-Star game. And then, but I'm a little bit worried about the Penguins. Greg McKay is on the third line. He's playing above average. I keep hearing everything. I know Mark Madden's talked about it. I know other pundits that are saying he's playing above. The problem is they lost too many role players over these past 2 years. Kunitz is gone. Dupuis now career ended. They've lost their head of their locker room, which was Marc-Andre Fleury. I know people will say it was Crosby. Then other people will say, no, it was actually Marc-Andre Fleury. I mean, I just see too many role players are gone and other guys are coming in, and they're depending a lot on these young kids to help them through and everything. That's the one thing that I will say has helped out the Penguins. They've had good young role players fill in. The problem is right now they don't have that anymore because they brought too many up. Their minor leagues is now in the major leagues. So, I mean, I think that's going to be something that hurts them, but I think still their division will still help them because teams have gotten worse that they're going to play a lot. And the Capitals aren't as good as they once were. They've lost some key people to free agency. Errol Carlson's still having some injury problems as well. So, I mean, on that side. So, I mean, I just don't see it. But I will give this credit, too. The Chicago Blackhawks are a very good team. Everybody seems to say that 10-1 game was Penguins' loss. No, the Blackhawks are a good team still. They have a lot of good players. I'm looking down through here right now. Your point leaders, 4, 5, and 6 are all Blackhawks. Kane, Saad, and Hartman. Not surprised they're that darn good. So, I mean, but I think it's one thing to look forward to is definitely, I think Chicago is going to make a good long run in the playoffs. And the nice thing is they got Marian Hosa's contract on long-term IR, and that freed up a lot of money to help them out to get them under cap room. So, not surprised. Penguins, I think, need some help, but I think they need to figure out the cap too and figure out where the heck they can go get some help.
Yeah, it's something they can address. And going on, they've had a few years where they had a rocky start and they really picked it up in the spring. And I'm hoping that's what happens. The blowout kind of scares me just because if you don't have defense to stop an onslaught of goals, it's going to cause problems. But it's so early that it's not worrisome. Come back in 2 or 3 weeks and we'll talk about it. What about you, Jeff? Have you been checking in on hockey, and what do you think about the Penguins' chances this year?
Well, honestly, I like the Penguins' chances a lot for a three-peat. That doesn't come around that often, so I really like it. It's really early in the season. They're 3 games in. I know they got blown out the other night, but at the end of the day, you have Murray. He's played well the last 2 years. He has 2 Stanley Cup championships under his belt now. But I don't know. I like the Penguins' chances, but what I want to talk about quickly, though, is the Las Vegas Knights. Did you guys see the other night Fleury, like 45 saves, James Neal with the score? I really like their chances this year. The new franchise team out there in Vegas is going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, it's interesting because they picked up a lot of guys, and their Twitter has been hilarious if you follow it. Another one I recommend is the Nashville mascot, Nash. He has a good Twitter. I think, the Predators. But Vegas has been like tweeting like I think they got a win or something, and they were tweeting like, "Hey, everyone thought we were gonna go 0-62 or 0-82, whatever the record is," and they've been talking mad trash on other teams. So
2-0 start the season.
That. It's a good way to build up fans. It's just going to be, okay, when's the novelty wear off for them? Are people going to still come? Because if the fans get out of it, it's very hard to keep the energy up. And I think right here in Carolina is a good example of that. You don't invest in the players. You lose and miss the playoffs for so many years in a row. You go to the game, I try to yell, get some hype, and it's dead. Sterile crowd. They have the fake music playing through. And there's no way, I mean, we all played sports. There's no way that you can get pumped up in an environment like that. It's actually what here, well, I'll bring it up in college football, but they actually complained about that NC State football going into Pitt this weekend. That was the one thing that I've heard, the rumblings, is it's hard to get up in a stale environment, and that's how you can get let down as a visiting team. So it's going to be let's see if people show up. You see it with the LA Rams or whoever, the Chargers and everyone. It's hard to get fans in an area that's very touristy, I think. But we'll keep an eye on that and see what happens. Matt, what do you think for NHL this season?
With the season game where they got slammed, if there's anything to really panic about. I think when you look they're going to be playing clear up till June or so. So I mean, even if it takes a little bit of time for this team to mesh, you still got the key people in place. You still got Malkin. You still got Crosby. You still have a lot of the core people that were on that team. You still have Kesselback. You got plenty of people that are there that know how to win. So it's not like you're completely starting from scratch. Yeah, I do think that missing guys like Fleury is going to have an impact somewhere down the road. But I think one thing that the management has done well in Pittsburgh is they identify needs, and it seems like they do a really good job of then through trades and different things like that, they're able to acquire the pieces that they need at the times that they need them. You know, through the course of the last couple of years, you've seen a variety of players come through that have contributed to these Stanley Cup championships. We questioned on our show here about the impact that some of these guys that were able to be picked up by Vegas, what it was going to have. With those players signing to Vegas, it almost reminded me when Coach Cowher retired with the Steelers and Ken Wisenhunt went to Arizona. It seemed like every Pittsburgh Steeler player that left ended up going to Arizona. I almost get like a similar feel with that, where you're getting all these past Penguin players all playing together. I think Vegas isn't going to be a flash in the pan, but I think they better cash in while the time is right now, while they have the novelty, like you said, and they're able to take advantage of people that are coming from a winning culture and be able to continue that success later on.
And winning with the expansion team isn't out of the question. If you remember when the NFL expanded to Carolina and Jacksonville, they both
95.
The AFC Championship and the NFC Championship within that next year or two. Because you are picking players, and you can pick players who have won. You can get a nice variety of veteran leadership and some young guys. It's just sustaining that, because once that initial run's over, you're going to have to build up and try to bring in the young talent, and you're going to have to develop that in-house. Right now, you kind of pick and choose. Of course, teams are going to lock down their best players, but you're able to get a well-rounded team. And if you look out in the West, I mean, it was pretty open last year. What seed was Nashville? I don't think they were the number one seed going in. So I think they were one of the lower ones, if I'm not mistaken. And they went on a run. They might have been number 8. So you have a team in a division that is pretty wide open, and it'll be interesting to see. And I'll use that as a segue now into Major League Baseball playoffs, because just like the NHL, you have a formula for excitement here with Major League Baseball. You have these play-in games. You have all the big market teams. Basically, you have Boston, you have New York. And Major League Baseball is putting these games at the worst time slot. I think it was one of the play-in games started at 1. The Houston game yesterday started at 1 on a Monday. And for people that work, you can't watch the games. And I know you don't want to spread it out because it's baseball, but half the time, I'll say this, I know their idea is that they want the baseball games on at different times. So they only want one game at a time, which is what we've talked about before the NFL has been doing. It's not good for fans. What if that game is a dud? What if your 7 o'clock game is a blowout? Anyone that's going to be interested in baseball, you're going to turn that on, boom. All right, well, that's a blowout. I'm going to turn it right back off. You're not going to sit and wait. People already complain about baseball being too long and boring. And now you have baseball games that you're stretching it out, and you're selling it to cable television channels. And I've looked at some numbers, and I sent them to you guys over the weekend or yesterday or whatever. But cable television is down. You have like 80-something million people that it used to be up over 100 for like ESPN and whatever. And now you have cable just dropping exponentially. Every month, it seems, more people are cutting. And instead, you're putting these games on TBS, you're putting them on whatever. Why not give a streaming option if you're going to have them on at 1 o'clock? I've looked for it. Maybe I just couldn't find it. Put the game on Twitter. Put the game on Facebook. I know Yahoo did some for the regular season. Put it on there, because if you're going to have the game on at Monday at 1 p.m., someone might be able to check it on their break at work. If they open up Twitter, they open up Facebook. You're not going to sit and watch the whole game because you physically can't. I just don't see people taking off work to go watch a game if they're not a diehard fan. And that just kills me. I know you talked about it Rick, but I'll give Matt, you can go ahead. Do you have any thoughts on like the Major League Baseball playoffs? I think you even said you didn't even know it was on, probably in jest. But
yeah, I joked around a little bit about it and just saying, are the playoffs still playing? Because I feel like when it comes to Major League Baseball, I feel like it starts so early and it runs so late that the only time that it seems like the games even matter is when you have those 2 one-game playoffs for people to play into the playoff system. One of the things that drives me crazy about Major League Baseball is that unless your team is playing locally, you have a hard time having access to a lot of their media. Like, around here, if you're a Pirates fan, you're in good shape. But if you're living, say, in North Carolina, then you're going to have a hard time getting access to a lot of those games. I can remember a couple different times trying to find different sites where they would stream St. Louis Cardinals games when I was living in North Carolina, and you couldn't do it. They were either blacked out or the station wasn't carrying them, and it was tough to try to even pick up radio feeds. Compare that to this past weekend. I was on the road and driving back, wanted to check in on a couple different games, and it was nice that you're able to pull up on the radio, with your smartphone, being able to look at whatever game you want and be able to pull up the live feed of that game and be able to at least hear the play-by-play of what's going on with that game.
yeah, that's a good point, because I know with the NFL, Verizon has a deal with them where they're trying to pull in and get you to watch. And I even get push notifications like, hey, it's 17-17 Monday night game. You can check it out on your phone. And yeah, the regional lockdown is total bullshit. I complain about it all the time. But if I want to watch a game, even like it hurts with like the ACC network. If I try to watch any ACC game being here in Raleigh, there's a 90% chance that game is blacked out. And there's no reason ESPN should be blocking it out. ESPN owns the network. What point is that? If I'm a fan, luckily, I'm a Michigan man, so I don't have to worry about my team getting blacked out because we don't get blacked out ever. But if you're an ACC fan, if I was an NC State fan, and I can't watch a game because it's blacked out, that's ridiculous. But we'll stick on baseball for now. Jeff, you have any thoughts on MLB playoffs?
Actually, not that much because I've been working second shift, so I haven't really been watching many games. But from what I've heard from my friends, it's been a fun playoff so far. The Yankees are back in it, and baseball loves the fact that we have a possibility of having Dodgers versus Yankees as a World Series. I know I wouldn't like watching that World Series, but I'm not. Yeah, but the MLB wants that game. You know how much money that would make the MLB? Probably the two biggest markets in the country playing for a World Series. That would be huge for the MLB. But I haven't got to watch many games or anything like that. But I heard it's been fun, and hopefully it's a good World Series like last year, which I saw. I got to see the Cubs win their first World Series in 100 years. But not really sure who the favorite is this year. But I'm sure it'll be fun.
Yeah, I know they're salivating over that big primetime matchup. I don't know if it's going to happen. Rick, what are your thoughts? Do you have anything else to add? I know you got into this in the high tempo segment.
Yeah, and I think the MLB was really hoping for the Boston Yankees series, but Houston's playing good baseball. I think something a lot of people missed, and then the one trade that really helped them was the Verlander trade. They went out and got the big-time prospect, the big-time pitcher, and did it. A lot of teams fear it. And, this is a team that you can model after if you're a small market. You see how the Pirates screwed up. They spent too much money on re-signing players, and now they can't get the player they need because they're wasting money on guys like Cervelli, who figured out 5 times how to get on the DL this year. And then you got teams like Cincinnati who have big contracts with Votto, and they can't do anything with it because he wants to stay there. But, and then you can't get pitching prospects. Whereas Houston did it the right way and is doing well. And pretty much Milwaukee stole a bunch of Houston guys, and now they're doing it. So, it's not surprising me how well teams are doing it, but you got to build through the minor leagues. And I will say this. I had to work on Columbus Day. I know a lot of federal employees did not. How I found out the score was my dad called me and said, hey, Houston won the game. And I'm like, didn't even know it was happening because I was busy at work. I get a message saying Houston won the game. It was on FS1, by the way.
Yeah,
I had to
another
look
cable
that up.
station. I did text you guys too because I didn't know it was on until I got the score alert that the game was over. I think I texted you guys like, who the hell plays at 1 o'clock on a Monday? Because I was working too. So, but go ahead. Do you have anything else?
No, and I will still say this: we still have the possibility of a rematch again, still of last year's, which will be Cubs Indians. So it'll be nice to see what happens tomorrow. I think tomorrow is going to be. I think Cubs will win. They got Arrieta pitching, and the Yankees are throwing. I can't believe this. They're throwing CC Sabathia against Kluber, and I'm thinking Kluber gets the bounce back win and gets it here in this game here. So I'm taking the Indians and gonna still take the Cubs to win tomorrow. So wait and see what happens. But at least I can watch maybe a half of a game and the whole game. So stupid. It's absolutely stupid. And by the way, Angel Hernandez umpire, and he's the worst damn umpire ever. Watch him umpire one of these games and blow it. I mean, ex-MLB players are like, why is he doing it? He sucks. Between him and Mitch Moreland, they both suck.
Yeah, I actually wouldn't mind if Cleveland won. I know that goes against a lot of Pittsburgh guys that hate Cleveland, but it's kind of hard to hate the Indians whenever the Pirates don't really play them, and the Pirates are awful. So, I mean, it's good to see a small market team make it in back-to-back years, at least this far. And I don't know, like I mentioned earlier, the playing game with the Twins and Yankees, it would have been nice to see the Twins win that game. They definitely wanted that Yankees-Red Sox matchup, and they didn't get it. But we'll end with that. I would like to see the Indians go and actually play the Dodgers. I think that'd be cool just because they both had pretty good streaks and records going throughout the season. And it'd be nice to see them meet with a chance to kind of solidify that. I think it was the best record versus the longest win streak instead of them both flaming out early in the playoffs, which I had a feeling was going to happen. But, all right, well, I beat around the bush long enough adding in extra topics considering we've only been doing football as I've been moving studio stuff around. But we're going to get into college football. I mentioned a little bit off top. We'll start with a little bit of celebrations and then we'll get into the complaints. First off, I mentioned it, NC State won. It'd be huge to get some extra tailgating stuff. We've been focusing on tailgating here at the Southbound Sports Show. If you follow our Instagram at Southbound Sports, Jeff's been throwing up a lot of awesome cooking stuff. So check that out. And we're probably going to be going to a couple games. Not sure if things are finalized, but it would be awesome if NC State doesn't blow it against Pitt. They play Notre Dame. If they can get maybe close to a top 10 matchup against Clemson in a few weeks, we'll definitely be there to cover that. Hopefully that goes down that way. But we're going to try to get more and more coverage over some live sports stuff. We're also looking at maybe attending a Michigan game later this year and some other stuff. But keep an eye out for that. Definitely follow us on social media, Instagram for pictures. We're going to try to get some more tailgating stuff up as we get things set up. But the other win this week was Coach Leach. Washington State, love the guy. It was great to see him come out against Oregon. I thought for sure everyone's been talking about they only win at home. They only played at home this year. They only won at home. He goes on the road, puts a beating on Oregon, which Oregon has really fallen off. Not really sure what's going on there. And it's just crazy because if this is a year and he's at Washington State, they don't have the money. They don't have the resources that other schools do. He's up against Washington. That Apple Cup game, Washington State, could be the premier game of rivalry weekend. Maybe Auburn, Alabama, but there's a chance Auburn could drop another game. Alabama, just too much for Auburn, considering Auburn already lost for Clemson. Could you imagine if it's an undefeated Washington versus Washington State? That'd be unprecedented in the Pac-12. So I'd love to see that happen. Glad that he finally got the win on the road against Oregon. Hopefully he continues that. I know they have a tough slate, but I'll be cheering for him. And again, must watch late night TV. Washington State. I know Washington's coach Chris Peterson was complaining about being on late night. Doesn't matter. Watch Mike Leach after your team plays if you're not a fan. Get some offense going. They definitely score some points. Check him out. Washington State Cougars. Hopefully they're going to be the representative in the playoffs from the Pac-12. That's my hope anyway. But Actually, considering, before we get into it, the Pac-12, Gary Anderson quit on Sunday or Monday, and he gave up $12 million. And I sent out a tweet from Southbound Sports, and I've actually had some people come back at me saying there's no reason he leaves $12 million on the table unless something is up. They're just not. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't equate. And you can't tell me that he's a great guy. Because if you remember, a lot of people might not understand who he is. He's at Utah State. He builds them up. He leaves them high and dry. I'm pretty sure there was some animosity there where a lot of Utah State fans felt slighted to go to Wisconsin. He just jumped ship because Wisconsin had, not Barry Alvarez, Brett Bielema. He jumped ship to go to Arkansas. Gary Anderson does the same thing real quick. It was real fast, I believe. You can go back and look through the timeline. I did some research and saw the Utah State fans were pretty upset with how he handled it. Then, after he takes Wisconsin to the Big Ten championship game, they get destroyed 59-0 against Ohio State. If you guys remember that game, it's the game that launched Ohio State into the playoffs. They jumped TCU and Baylor, I think, that year, who both had one loss. And right after that game, Gary Anderson decides he's leaving to go to Oregon State, which it didn't make any sense. Why would he just leave? It's kind of like the guy, I don't know if it's he doesn't like losing, he can't handle the pressure. Some of the Utah State things I've read was he said he had health problems, kind of Urban Meyer-esque, but he leaves Utah State, gets to Wisconsin, gets destroyed, leaves Wisconsin, and Barry Alvarez, the AD, takes over and beats an SEC team in that bowl game that year. So it's not like he had a bad team. And now, right at Oregon, he just gets up and leaves with $12 million on the table. That's not a great guy. He sounds like a quitter. He quits on his players. He quits on his team. That's an awful coach. Who the hell would hire him? So I just wanted to put that out there because I know some people were coming at me. But that's my thoughts on it. I don't care if the guy's a great guy. If you're a great guy and you're worried about molding men, you don't quit on him. You don't quit on him. How many guys were you recruited, came to school because of you as coach? And now it's what, 5 weeks in and you're just going to quit? That's weak. I don't care. If you're going to be a molder of men, you can't come and pretend to take the high road. And I would bet something else is in the background. If I'm a betting man, just because no one gives up $12 million and says it's because he's molding men or whatever he said was his cop-out. But that's a big topic for the week. Matt, I know you have some bitching to do before I get into mine. I'll let you kick it off this week for college football. Go ahead.
Son of a bitch. I knew going in, we talked about this, before the season started when Rick first signed at Miami. You asked about if I was worried about him going over there. And absolutely. He did nothing at Georgia but win. I mean, he struggled knocking off Alabama, and they ran him out of town for it, but everyone else has trouble doing that. So he goes to Miami, back to his alma mater, and all he's doing is putting together a winning team. He got the hype around with that stupid gumball machine necklace that they get for turnovers. The defense for Florida State still looks ridiculous. They look like they have not lined up. The thing that drove me probably ready to smash my TV was, how do you let Miami's team captain and star wide receiver run right down the field and make plays? Like, of all the people, you would think maybe the guy with the C on his jersey, maybe cover him and don't let him just run 30 yards downfield untouched. Like, maybe. It's not like there's like a glaring mark on him that says, hey, I'm probably someone you need to keep an eye on. And they just let him go at a key point in the game. I was happy with the run game. I thought that they finally are starting to show that they can run the football a little bit. Blackman did nothing that I felt like he's still continuing for being as young as he is. I was very happy with it, with his performance. I feel like Jimbo Fisher still needs to kind of get his shit together when it comes time to get to the red zone. We get in there and then he thinks he has to throw the ball every single time. You have this big offensive lineman, you have these talented running backs. It's okay to run the football every once in a while. It's like we pin ourselves into these predictable situations, and then we have to throw the ball, and everyone knows that we're throwing the ball, and a quarterback ends up taking ridiculous sacks, and it doesn't help. And then you look at the defense, and it's the most predictable sets of coverages. You get into these 3 down linemen with obvious like blitzes coming. The blitz gets picked up. The quarterback stands back there for an hour and then throws, just completely shreds the defense apart. Charles Kelly was the linebackers coach on the national championship team, and I had read at different places that there was talks about possibly should Jimbo Fisher demote him. To me, I think that could be a possible answer, but the bottom line is we got to get a defensive coordinator. I feel like we're on Florida State side, they're for the most part able to score enough points to keep them competitive. I feel like the defense isn't holding up their end of the bargain. I felt like on the flip side, when you look at your Michigan Wolverines, I felt like they got plenty of defense, but they can't bring their offense along. So it's like if they could combine forces, they could have a half of a functional unit.
I know if you're, I'll be getting into that. Do you have any other final thoughts before I let these guys talk?
Yeah, I mean, I was just happy to see that they had that a 4-star defensive, I think it was a defensive back committed today. I'm glad to see that there's not a lot of negative blowback because of this, because I think if they're projecting where they are, I see them struggling versus Louisville. I see them struggling versus Clemson, and there's consecutive years of being bowl eligible is definitely in jeopardy right now if they don't get it together. So they have to go on a run here, and they have to knock off some quality opponents to be able to even make themselves bowl eligible. And if they don't, then shame on them, because they have top 25 talent, and to be honest, top 10 talent in that defensive secondary, and they're not getting it done. So if push comes to shove and we drop a couple more, there needs to be changes somewhere along the line. It's inexcusable.
Yeah, we talked about the roster talent. Florida State's definitely top 10. And don't worry, you guys have Florida on their roster or on your schedule left. So that's an easy one.
I don't even want to hear that, Mr. Oh, Florida. Michigan's playing Florida, and they're such a tough team. Blow me.
They were until they lost to LSU. We were just making fun of Ed Orgeron, and then I don't even know what to say for that. But no worries. But Jeff, I have some words for you. First off, you call me out on your show for a bunch of college football stuff. I just caught up on your show. I did like how you told the Michigan story. Went to the big house. It was great. Great time. You're blowing my mind on some of your stuff. You're calling Jim Harbaugh John Harbaugh. Messing up a bunch of podcast stuff that I think a trivial fan would know. And then today you show up and you're wearing a Georgia Bulldogs hat while you have a Pitt banner. You talk about being a Michigan fan, and the tailgate videos you post are at WVU tailgates. So I'm a little confused on what's happening here.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm just covering all the schools in my general area, just going all in. But it was a bad weekend in the sports world. The Steelers lost, Pitt lost, WVU lost, and Michigan lost, most importantly. I ended up watching the Michigan game with about 3 to 5 Penn State fans. And let's just say there were some heated words at the end of the game. A fist almost went through a brick fireplace because I did not take that ending very well. But I will say this. The Bulldogs, 6-0, and the only one left on their schedule who is even remotely good is Auburn. They might have a tough game against Florida. I mean, Florida State will probably lose to Florida, but I don't think Georgia will. And Matty B, I had to come out. I had one thing coming for you. The U is back, man. I think Florida State's days are over. The Hurricanes out there with that bling bling on the sideline, making plays all over the place.
It's definitely the gold chain, and the only thing Florida State could do to compete is maybe like a headdress or something like that.
I think Florida State's gonna need some
I think Butch
do-rag or
Jones
something.
already. I think Butch Jones already has it with the dumpster. Just get rid of those tacky sideline celebrations. Act like you've been there before. You're a top tier program. Act like it, like a Mickey Mouse operation with your 50-cent gold chain on the sideline. Ridiculous.
Hey Matty, when you're winning games, you can do what you want out there. When you're winning games, you can do what you want.
Ain't that something?
I just feel bad that the U's taking over Miami again. It's a sad day for Florida State.
Well, they're definitely starting to pull the recruits in, and it's not like the blueprint is top secret. Lock down that lower Miami area in recruiting and keep those local recruits at home, and they're going to field a very competitive team until the next round of sanctions hit them. There's always some kind of sanctions that knocks them down a few pegs, but for a while the gettings are good, they're going to clean house with, as long as they're pulling those those South Florida recruits. There's a reason why every school in college football is down there trying to pick off a couple of those guys, because they can change their team in a hurry.
Yeah, that's one thing that blows my mind. That hotbed down there, and I think it was a 30 or 30. I saw something about that. Like the amount of athletes that come out of like a 10 to 50 square foot mile down there in Miami is unbelievable. They have 4 and 5 star recruits every single year. Every university in the Big Ten, the Pac-12, the SEC, they're coming down to Florida. They want those athletes, the guys that you can't coach speed, and kids from Florida, somehow they have speed, and every school wants them. And it looks like the U right now is locking them down. They're bringing those in-state recruits in.
Any other final thoughts for football this weekend, Jeff?
I got a lot of thoughts for football this weekend.
Go ahead, pour them on.
Whew. I don't know what it is, but literally last year, the team that Pat Narduzzi put on the field was a respectable unit. Pitt this year looks so bad. You're 2-4. You go up to Syracuse. That should be an automatic win. Syracuse hasn't been relevant in years. Pitt drops to 2-4. NC State's coming in for homecoming. So you know what that's telling me? Pitt is going to be 2-5 after this weekend. I'm not even going to the games. I can't stand to watch that after last year. Penn State comes in. Pitt puts a hurting on them. Pitt beats Clemson last year. They had a pretty respectable season last year. Pat Narduzzi did a good job coaching, but I think he's dropping the ball in recruiting because the team they're putting out there right now is garbage. They're about to be 2-5. Their schedule doesn't get any easier. It's bad news for them. Then you got Michigan losing in the freaking a monsoon, whatever that was called. It was unbelievable. John O'Korn out there looked like he was back in Huntington playing a little double-A Forest Hills, throwing picks and doing all kinds of stupid shit out there. Oh, man, it was a rough weekend. WVU loses to TCU. They have homecoming this weekend against Texas Tech at home, so maybe they get back on track. Now, don't worry. I know that Michigan's going to go into Creepy Valley in a couple weeks and take care of business there and knock out Penn State, but you can't. Ever since Mike Hart went all in on Michigan State, calling him his little brother, Michigan State's been taking it to Michigan, and it's awful.
Do you think the rivalry thing, does that bother you? Like as a fan, because I've seen a lot of talking heads talk about losing to rivals. Like if Harbaugh, if he wins 10, 11 games a year but loses a rivalry game every year or two, does that bother you?
I don't know. I have mixed opinions on it because it doesn't necessarily bother me unless it's Penn State. If you lose to Penn State, then I'm going to be pretty upset. But, I mean, for the last couple of years, Dan Antonio has brought Michigan State back. I mean, last year they weren't that great, but in the last, 5 to 10 years, Michigan State's been pretty damn good. Essentially, ever since Mike Hart talked shit, Michigan State's been good. They've had a chance to win the Big Ten every year. So losing to them, the only thing that pisses me off is that Mike Hart made it a rivalry because it wasn't really there for for a lot of years. But I don't know. As long as Michigan takes care of business at Penn State, you got to like their schedule. They do play Wisconsin, but they play Ohio State at home this year. They don't have to go to Ohio State. So if you take care of business at Penn State, you got Wisconsin and you got Ohio State. Right there, you're in the Big Ten championship if you win those 3 games.
That's a lot to ask.
Thank you for reminding me there.
Go ahead, Matt.
Why does every game Michigan play have to be a rivalry game? Every time you turn around, Michigan State's a rivalry game, Ohio State's a rivalry game, Penn State's going to be a rivalry game. Every single game, the game of the week is West Virginia TCU, and they play at noon because, God forbid, we miss one of the 17 rivalry games that Michigan's playing this year. Jesus Christ. Just play. I'll give you Ohio State. I'll give you the Ohio State game. That's a great rivalry. It's an old rivalry. Don't give me every single week Michigan has a rivalry game. It's ridiculous. Just shut up with it. Don't even say anything. It's ridiculous.
I want to see Rick. I want to hear Rick's input on this. But one last thing: when you're the most prestigious and best college football team in the country, you're gonna have rivals. USC's a rival. Notre Dame's a rival. Everyone's a rival.
For those of you who can't watch this, Coming from a man wearing a Pitt shirt and Georgia hat, talking about a prestigious program. So take it for what it's worth.
Well, Matt,
I know Rick's been waiting.
dude, I want to ask you real quick before Rick goes. What do you think about Florida State? They're in a similar situation where Florida considers them a rival, Miami considers them a rival, probably Clemson considers them a rival, along with South Carolina. The same situation when you're the best. Everyone wants to be a rival, don't you think?
I would claim the Miami is more rival. They schedule Florida every game, but like there's not the same. I feel like there's maybe 2 games. I feel like every time you turn around, there's some rivalry game that they're playing. If they play Notre Dame, that'll be a rivalry game. Play Hawaii, that'll be a rivalry game. Playing DeVry, that's a rivalry game because in 1901, someone lit their pants on fire. Whatever it is, it's ridiculous.
I don't know. Rick, go ahead. We've held off on you. I know you wanted to gloat anyway.
Well, first off, I was just going to say rivalries is the word that I'm tired of in college football because it seems like everybody's a rival of somebody. And it's always like Penn State's a rivalry. They only play like 2 times every like 15, 20 years. How is that a rival? A rival would be somebody who would play nonstop every year and have back and forth, not being lopsided or one-sided. I mean, I don't get it, but whatever. It helps Michigan fans sell tickets and feel proud about themselves when they lose games. So it's good, you know, and then they put their khakis on and their hat and their glasses and they cry a lot because that's what hardballs do. If we don't win, we cry. We cry. Have you ever seen a kid throw a temper tantrum? Then watch Jim Harbaugh or John, either one. Watch when they don't get a call their way. It's like, oh my God, it's like they lost. They didn't get the toy they wanted for their birthday. Freaking crap. Tired of him. Congratulations, Michigan, this week. That's what you get for talking trash. This is the funny thing. I didn't want to make this thing. Oklahoma goes and talks trash and puts the flag in the middle. They lose. Iowa State did it this week to Oklahoma and then went back and apologized for doing it. That was hilarious that you're going to apologize after doing it. Just don't do it. Because now everybody's going to have that on their bulletin board saying, look at these gloaters. They deserve to lose. That's my first point. Second point, you have a homecoming game pit against number 24. And to sell tickets, you have to give a bobblehead out. I've never seen that at college football. That shows me that you're desperate. I want to say that again. You're desperate. You're like the high school girl that's looking for the date for the prom, and you're willing to do anything to just sell tickets to like a 60,000 seat stadium. Now you have to do a bobblehead. Jeez, you'll probably give me a T-shirt because sales aren't that good for the game. I will say this: West Virginia is probably going to lose again, Jeff, since that's one of your 94 teams that you cheer for. You know. So, it's going to be great. They're going to lose. It'll be huge. They're going to lose huge. Texas Tech will destroy them. The one thing that I always like watching is Navy when they try to put Navy games on. They're 5-0 still. They're 25 ranking right now. They're playing Memphis, which actually should be a half-decent game. So hopefully that game will be on TV. Probably not because Michigan's in a rivalry game. Well, I don't have to worry about Pitt being on TV because they don't put those games on TV in Western Pennsylvania, because nobody watches them because it's just embarrassing. I'd rather rake leaves than do that at this time of the year. San Diego State's still 6-0. Congratulations to them. And by the way, I already have the argument that when Penn State wins next week against Michigan, it's going to be because Penn State took the bye this week and Michigan didn't take the bye. In a rivalry game, they didn't take the bye. They went out and played, blah, 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 whatever. Except the fact you lost. Jeez. Hey. Go to the steak dinner and drink your milk and just call it a day.
Hey, when you're the best program, you want to compete every single week.
Again, how are you the best program? Alabama wins like every freaking year. Alabama's the best program. They lose like one game every 3 years. That's the best program. They get the recruits. They're always number one.
Go to a can opener in this diving pool.
Oh, yeah. Michigan has a rivalry next week. They have Penn State. Then after that, they got to go. No, I forget where they go after that. Then I think it's Ohio State the week after that. Jeez.
Guys, there's a lot of anger here. I'm not really
The
sure where
truth
it's coming from. But, Rick, you're talking trash on rivalries. Penn State's the one whose motto is unrivaled. And then they sell these whiteout games.
A rivalry would have to, at least the other team would have to win once in a while. They don't win. Well, unless it was Bill O'Brien years, but those are pretty much embarrassing. He was awful. Worst quarterback coach ever, by the way. I don't know how Deshaun Watson's doing good, but I'm thinking it's because he played in Clemson, not because Bill O'Brien's a genius. Yeah, he'll be fired by the end of the year, calling that.
Well, I'm going to add on. I'll start with that. So Penn State's unrivaled. I see a lot of the talking heads, the hot topic, of course, Michigan. I have a bunch of notes. I went through just a couple points. I did my research. I actually went back to 2015 when Harbaugh came. That first year, all the same talking heads that are complaining about him this year predicted him to have a 7-win season. 7 or 8 wins is what I saw mostly around. And if you want to get some good reads, search, go on like Google or whatever, type in Jim Harbaugh, Michigan, even 49ers. There's a ton of great laughers for the 49ers. And just go to your news section and sort it by year. Go through and read a bunch of the articles, and you can see how the cupboard's bare. Brady Hoke doesn't have the players. Harbaugh will never win. Harbaugh goes 10 wins that year. Next season, that's a pretty good year. I saw a couple things about, they're probably going to win 10 games. They'll be lucky to win a rivalry game, which I don't understand why the rivalry game is a standard bearer. Yeah, okay, I understand that it's like a big game for selling tickets and hype, but who cares who you lose to? If you lose, it's a loss. What's the difference if you lose to Michigan State or if you lose to Penn State and Penn State's not considered a rival or whatever? Because if you're looking at points, I saw a lot of people put out and say, Harbaugh's done in 2 years if he doesn't beat his rivals. I'll tell you, no, he's probably not. I mean, they say that the alumni base is disgruntled. No. I talked to some other alums. No one's disgruntled. You lose to Michigan State. I mean, yeah, okay, so I don't live in Michigan. So maybe I'm not close to the people who would be complaining because you don't have to go to work. I don't have to go to work and see a bunch of Michigan State guys. And to me, that's what's part of the rivalry. I grew up in Pennsylvania as a Michigan guy. I'd rather see them beat Penn State than say Michigan State. A loss to them doesn't really bother me. If you lived there, I could see it, yeah. But the Penn State one, to me, whenever you're stacking up, and the pundits want it to be Ohio State and Michigan State, they really need to include Penn State in those numbers. Because in terms of rivals, you're looking at people you play in your division and are competing for conference championships with. Right now, okay, so he was 1-1 going into that game against Michigan State. Now he's 1-2. Both losses against Michigan State were on pretty crazy circumstances. The first one was the blocked punt that was returned for a touchdown. And this past week was the monsoon. And, okay, Ohio State, the first year was a blowout, complete blowout. Harbaugh wasn't ready. Last year, you have the game of inches. He has the 4th down stop, or doesn't he? Looked like if you go on replay, he was stopped short. You could complain that they didn't have the angles. I've brought it up anyway, multiple times for multiple games. They need to have that straight down view. Then there's no controversy of the first down marker, and every stadium could do it. Okay, so they dropped that one. It wasn't like he's getting blown out in these games. But then the Penn State one. Everyone conveniently forgets. Harbaugh's never lost to Penn State. Harbaugh's blown out Penn State 2 years in a row. Franklin's not even come close to beating him. Last year was 49-10. That's a Penn State team that won the conference. Why does that game not count? I think that's what Harbaugh brought up at his press conference. If you're going to go ahead and say that these rivalry games count, why doesn't that one count just as much? The Notre Dame one I can see. You're touting it as a rivalry. They're not in your conference. If you lose that game, does it matter? Could you still win the conference and get in the playoffs? Yeah. Matt, you have something?
Yeah, the one thing that I just wonder, is Harbaugh willing to stick around? Because it seems like he gets a team close, and all kidding aside, it seems like he performs well at San Diego State. He performs well with the Niners. He's performing well at Michigan now. He's getting them close. Is he going to stick around to see if he can actually seal the deal, or is he going to be the team that builds a team up, Like I kind of comparatively look at like a Bill Parcells, that he won his championship with the Giants, but then he bounced around in Miami, the Jets, Dallas. He built them back up, but then it was like he never actually took that next step. I haven't seen Harbaugh, win that big one yet, but it's like he has the blueprint, he has the formula of just instilling smart defense. He wins a turnover battle a lot of times. He runs a caveman Neanderthal power eye offense and just kind of goes right down the throat and preaches his physical style. Does he stick around at Michigan long enough to make his system work there? Because he's building them up, but will he stay? I think that's the question that needs to be seen.
Well, I have a couple thoughts on that, and that's the thing that people bring up. But if you look at other coaches that have jumped, you're moving up. He moved up from San Diego to Stanford. That's a jump up. Then he moves up from Stanford to the NFL. The only one that could be seen as a move back down was the 49ers move to Michigan. But like I said, go back, do your research. Type in Jim Harbaugh, go back to 2015, and read all the garbage that the 49ers were saying about him. And then go back now, and then type in Jim Harbaugh 49ers this year, and see how many of those guys are still bitter. And to me, this is one of the points I wanted to make, so I'm glad you brought that up, Matt. I think that the major networks want him to go back to the NFL. Let's be honest, the NFL is a boring product this year. What games, like, outside of like the Pittsburgh Steelers, like what games are you going to tune in for? I've already complained about the commentators. I actually watched this weekend with the TV off, like the sound off on my TV, because I can't take it anymore. They're not talking about the game. They're not telling me things I don't know. I mean, of course, and one of my complaints is if you're not going to give me insight on the game, zoom out a little bit more so I can see what the receivers are doing. That's your job as a commentator. Tell me what's happening that I can't see because I have a limited television view. You're there at the game. What's the crowd doing? I don't know. But then I have these same guys are coming out, and I've read a bunch of them. And I go ahead and look. Type in Michigan Jim Harbaugh this past weekend. Almost every article, you can tell when someone's bitter because they always open up with, like you joked about, like the jackknife. They were like, Jim Harbaugh was too busy playing jackknifes. And I saw a lot of them said, don't count out the rain. Both teams played in it. Okay, well, during the game, I texted you guys. Harbaugh didn't come out. The team wasn't ready. Okay, he's done that almost every game. And I think we brought it up on the show where in the second half, he makes adjustments and outcoaches teams. I think that's just, he's used to doing that. But when a monsoon comes, I text you guys and I said, holy crap, this rain is going to be like, it's going to blow out the game. No one's going to score the rest of this game. What happened? No one scored. No one barely even got past the 40-yard line. How many balls were on the ground if you watched the game? It wasn't just Michigan throwing interceptions that are sailing out of hands. Michigan State guys fumbling it on a 4th and 1, trying to even get the snap. No one was doing anything because of how much rain there was. So you can't say that that wasn't a factor in the game. It definitely was. Both teams were done. The game could have ended at halftime. That's basic. I mean, I think Michigan scored right at the beginning of the third quarter before it hit. And a lot of people were saying, oh, well, it didn't make a factor. No, Michigan was moving the ball. They had another touchdown called back because of a holding penalty. So you can't tell me that once the rain happened and everyone started dropping the ball, Michigan's passing offense kind of stalled. And that was where I'm disappointed. Harbaugh, like Matt said, he brings a big power eye. I would like to see a rushing attack. It's his third year. There's not really one. In a monsoon, you shouldn't be forced to throw the ball. You're only really down by 4. Why not just run power eye? Bring in your 2 tight ends, run a bunch of power eye, and just move the football. I didn't see that. He was tempted to roll out O'Korn. Of course, it's wet. He's slipping. I think there's a video where people say they think he flopped on the sideline. I mean, you can't control the factors, but if you don't come out and get down 2 touchdowns at the beginning of the game because you're playing it vanilla, he did it in the Orange Bowl. I know Peppers was out. You played vanilla in the first half, make your adjustments, come back in the second half. But sometimes you can't rely on that because something else happens, like this, the monsoon hits. Okay, you made your adjustments, everything looks like it's going good, but now no one can hold on to the ball, the game's over. Time's just going to keep ticking down. That's what happened. And so it's kind of weird that the media is going to kind of portray this, but it seems like everyone wants him to jump back in the NFL. And I'll tell you why, because he's going to help the ratings. NFL right now is at an all-time low. People hate it. They're already complaining about it. People are boycotting. Who's going to bring viewers back? You need people that are going to be polarizing figures. Why do you think ESPN runs a story about Jim Harbaugh every other day? Because it gets clicks. People like him. They think he's like a fun, energetic guy. He's the one out there popping his shirt off, playing backyard football with the guys. He's the one jumping into pools. He's the one doing all kind of crazy stuff. And you can read it if you like. Just read some articles. And people hate him because they'll throw it in his face like, oh, looks like that sleepover didn't pay off with that kid because Michigan lost to Michigan State. But don't say it wasn't due to the rain because both teams played in it. No one scored in the rain. No one scored in the rain. So don't tell me that both teams played in it because it affected both teams and it was a sloppy second half. And is he going to learn from it? Yeah, he even said, like, I think he's like 20-3 outside of the rivalry games. If you add Penn State in, who the big division rivals right there, if you want to say rivals, we'll say division contenders, since you guys don't seem keen on rivals. His division contenders are he was 3-4 against them. 2 blowout wins against Penn State, a closer than what it seemed game against Michigan State last year. Some people say that there was a bigger difference because Michigan State scored late, but it was still too close for comfort. That was a 3-9 Michigan State team. 2 losses last second against Michigan State, and then this year's monsoon game, the last second overtime loss to Ohio State. So, I mean, he's right there. He's not getting blown out. And my last point I'm going to make is I look at Clemson. Dabo Swinney, I remember I was working at a school and I had a kid from Clemson, and I picked on him every year because I knew he was never going to beat the head ball coach, Steve Spurrier. You know, Dabo Swinney at Clemson went 0-5 against him. There was a streak where he lost 5 games in a row. I think he actually won the first one. I don't know if Spurrier was there yet or not, but Clemson lost 5 straight games to South Carolina. How many, and up to that point, Clemson like barely ever lost to South Carolina. If you look at the all-time record, they never lost to him. Dabo couldn't beat him. It was embarrassing. Did they run him out because he didn't beat his rival? No, because he was competitive in the ACC, and look what happened. Do you think they're going to get rid of him now? Hell no. They would never get rid of Dabo right now. So the rivalry thing doesn't matter. Just keep winning. Yeah, it sucks that your supposed rivals are in your conference, and now you have to win out, like Jeffrey said. Jeffrey made it seem like it's highly realistic, but it's probably not going to happen. If he beats Penn State, that's a big one, but he's continually beat Penn State. The thing that worries me is going to be the Ohio State game. That's going to give him the second loss. And that's where if Michigan beats Penn State beats Ohio State, you get some of those with 1 losses in there, kind of like the round robin. Michigan's going to be the odd man out again because they lost that second game. Just like last year, they lost the extra game to Iowa, kicked them out. So, I don't know. His players aren't there yet. My last theory on it is the reason for him going to O'Korn and a lot of people saying that Peters should have got the call. It's a quarterback he recruited. I honestly think that he's grooming Dylan McCaffrey, who's Christian McCaffrey's brother, the Heisman contender last year from Stanford. He plays for the Carolina Panthers, pretty good ball player. It's the same kind of formula he followed at Stanford, going with the senior guys the first couple years, building up recruiting classes, and then you have a quarterback come in with a football family pedigree. He knows the calls, just like Andrew Luck. His dad was AD at West Virginia, Oliver Luck. You can look him up. I think he's on the NCAA infractions committee now. So he got a guy who was brought up around football his whole life, 4-star recruit, same as McCaffrey. His brother knows. I mean, you know he's talking to his brother. He gets him in there. The reason he can't play this year is he's skinny as a stick. He'd get broken, which I don't know if I actually said it on the show, but Wilton Speight broke his neck. How come the pundits aren't saying that Michigan's quarterback has 3 broken vertebrae? I think they said ESPN said it during the show, but like I said, I wasn't listening with sound. I guess they kind of confirmed it. But why aren't these articles bringing up that fact? If the starting quarterback,
because Derek Carr's a beast and he's able to come back in a couple weeks. Why can't Speight?
Well, it depends on where it's broken. Isn't Carr's in his back though?
His lower back, yeah.
Yeah, I would say a neck and a lower back.
That's close to where his spine is. It's all in that spinal column. It's close.
Well, that's my thing. Like, just bring it up. Okay, he lost to Michigan State. Michigan State might not be that good. They're 4-1. They lost to Notre Dame because they lost a turnover battle. That game might have been closer. They might have still lost. Whatever. I don't know. But come on, at least be fair with your coverage. I honestly think they're just trying to push him out, and I'll use that as a segue into the NFL, and then if you guys want to go back to college football or whatever. But the NFL, nothing this week. The Steelers, there's locker room issues. What am I going to say? It's awful. Whenever you have to tweet out, I sent you guys a picture Maybe I'll retweet it. I think I might have already retweeted it from Southbound Sports. When you send a picture out of your players, like looked like they were in the shower or something, holding hands, and then with a caption, "Hey, we're one team, we're together." No, you're not. That's a bullshit move. That's kind of like someone who's dating, like a boy or girl, and they're not getting along, so they have 300 pictures of themselves on Facebook. Like, look at us, we're getting ice cream, and then it's like when as soon as that picture's done getting taken, they're fighting. That's what the Steelers are doing right now. They're sending out these happy pictures, like, look at us, we're not fighting, guys. Look, we're all holding hands in the shower, and then you go ahead. And what's happening? Le'Veon Bell's taking shots at old Steelers on Twitter and everything else. It's not a happy family. Steelers right now are in a world of trouble. And if they don't get it around, I mean, luckily their division is awful. Although, who knows with the Ravens taking it to the Raiders. I don't know. But that's my final thoughts. I'm done for the week. You guys can, we'll go ahead, do some final thoughts. I don't want to take it up. If you guys want to talk longer, feel free. But I have nothing on the NFL. Michigan, I'm dead from that. We'll see what happens this next week, and if they beat Penn State, I mean, they're definitely not out of it. Playing a backup quarterback, I mean, that's just kind of the same problem Florida State has. So you can't really blame it on the offense. Florida State's defense, yeah, could be better. I mean, there was still a last-second loss to Miami, so nothing to be upset about. It took a crazy deep throw. They were up by 4. I think they had 9 men on the line of scrimmage for that throw. And I saw it. I was thinking, like, why are they blitzing? Why aren't they just doubling that guy at the top and doubling the other guy?
Because don't you go bringing common sense into this discussion. Don't you bring common sense here.
Well, they were playing.
That's something that smart people do.
But I don't even think he pressed him. Like if you're playing 9 up, why aren't you pressing him? At least pushing him out of bounds. Like I don't know. They just like let him run right down. And so like I mean, but it wasn't like a blowout loss until teams start getting blowout losses or losses like LSU to Troy. That's whenever you have issues. Not because you lost a Big Ten game by 4 points in a monsoon or 3 points, whatever the final score ended up being. But the Steelers, you don't lose by 30 or whatever it ended up being to Jacksonville. I actually thought I read the score wrong as I was going through because Ben was like, he was throwing interceptions, but for some reason my mind still thought the Steelers were winning. And I'm looking at the score, and I even told someone like, hey, yeah, the Steelers are winning. And then I'm like, no, wait a second. That's not Bortles throwing these interceptions. That's Ben. What am I watching? Like my mind couldn't process it. And then Ben came out and was like, maybe I just don't have it anymore, or whatever he said. Just pisses me off, like because he's out. And Jeff, this last point to call you out on. You said Roethlisberger wasn't going to retire. He's going to retire. You don't make a joke like that and then not retire. But we'll let you go, Jeff, since I called you out there. What are your final thoughts or whatever?
Got a lot of final thoughts. First, I'm going to start with the Big Ten. The 4 best teams in the Big Ten are all in the East. You have Penn State, Michigan State, Ohio State. It kind of makes me mad sometimes that it's so, one-sided. I mean, you do have Iowa and Wisconsin on the other side, but usually only one team is good out of both of them. So, I don't know. It just makes me a little bitter. As long as, Michigan wins out, they're in the Big Ten championship. But
Nebraska. It's funny that you didn't mention them.
Yeah, maybe 10 years ago. I'm not a big of a Nebraska person. But anyway, I got a lot with the Steelers. You know what? I have to eat my words. You're right. Ben's days are numbered at this point. After his body language and the way he's conducting himself these days, this isn't the Hall of Fame Ben that I grew up watching conduct himself. At the end of the day, when I watched his interview after the game and he said, maybe I don't have it anymore, I hate to say it, he reminded me of some 16-year-old who played his first bad game of his life in football and just had that sassy asshole tone, like, well, fuck it, like it is what it is, But I think it's going to be okay with the Steelers. I feel like they need to pull Aaron Rodgers, was it 2 years ago, and he's like, relax. Because other than the Kansas City Chiefs being 5-0, every division leader and basically everyone in the AFC is essentially 3-2 or 2-3. So they're winning the division. They have a crucial tiebreaker over the Ravens. They play the Ravens at home as the second game. So I like my odds of beating the Ravens twice this year once you beat them at Baltimore. The Bengals always scare me because you don't know what team you're going to see. You could see the team that played the Packers, or you could see the team that Andy Dalton throws 4 picks and can't hit, a broadside of a barn. So the Bengals scare me because you just don't know what they're gonna bring to the table. And they're 2-3. They're not out of this hunt yet either. So I don't know. At the end of the day, when you have a Hall of Fame quarterback, the best running back in the league, and the best receiver in the league, I like your chances. But the real question is, why is Todd Haley not on the hot seat here? I think we should have started this segment, the NFL out with that, because this offense for the Steelers should be averaging 30 points a game. When you have arguably a top 5 offensive line, a Hall of Fame quarterback, like I said, with Bell and Brown, how are you not scoring points? I know Ben just threw 5 picks, but if you really look at it, Matt, I would love to hear your opinion on this. When you're a quarterback and you have 2 picks that are deflected, they're not really your fault. I hate to say it. I don't want to be that guy. I was never a quarterback like you, but those aren't on you. I didn't like the one, though, because he clearly missed. But I don't know. I guess I'm trying to, compensate for Ben's horrible performance. But the 5th pick, they're down by a lot. He's just slinging it around. So he had 4 picks, 2 deflected. One was a play, Donald 89 was trying to go for the ball, and essentially Ramsey just outplayed him for it. So that's a 50-50 ball. I don't know. I don't think his picks were as bad as people make him out to be, but the Steelers locker room is the real problem, I'd say. But I don't know, you guys go. Matt, I'd love to hear your opinion on Ben's picks, because I don't think they're as bad as everyone thinks they were.
Yeah, Matt, go ahead. Jump
yeah,
right in.
that was kind of the direction I was thinking. Although I got to send some love to Jalen Ramsey and Telvin Smith, Knowles in the NFL doing that work.
Ramsey balling out.
When you more Knowles making plays in the NFL. I can't watch him on Saturdays make plays.
Our narrative here is that Florida State, they're busts in the NFL. So don't be giving him props, Jeff.
Yeah, that's true. I need to slip my rule on that one.
But I think when you look at Ben's picks and you look at Haley being on the hot seat, there's only so much Todd Haley can control. He can't control getting Le'Veon Bell into camp and getting him to perform. He can't get Antonio Brown to quit being a moron and actually just focus on the wide receiver play. All he can do is he can game plan and he can roll out the plays that ultimately Ben wants to run. From there, it's Ben being on the same page with a lot of those guys. And I don't know if it's the distraction with the kneeling and sitting protesting that has everyone up in arms, but there's definitely some kind of disconnect. And I don't blame Haley as much as I do Tomlin. And when I kind of look at this, I think a lot of it boils down to it's Tomlin's leadership or lack thereof that's allowing a lot of these shenanigans to go on. It's just there's no discipline. They constantly are putting themselves in bad positions with holding penalties, with false starts, with procedure penalties, one thing after another. They put themselves into these holes where it's 1st and 15, second and 20, whatever it may be. They're in these long distance situations that now they have to turn and throw, the ball down the field in these predictable coverages. Some of that isn't on Ben. It's on the rest of the team having a little bit of discipline and getting it done.
Yeah. I don't know. I see it both ways. I did get a couple texts from family members, which is funny, that Mike Tomlin's overrated, which is such a Pittsburgh thing to get, like a random Steelers fan, like, I'm done with Mike Tomlin. He needs to go. That's Ben Roethlisberger's throwing picks. But Rick, any final thoughts for you this week?
I look at the Steelers and I look at the Penguins and see they're kind of the same in a way, because they are losing a lot of leadership characters in the locker rooms, both. I mentioned about Fleury and, others, Kunitz being one. Now you look at the Steelers, they've lost Paul Malu, they've lost Heath Miller. I mean, they continue to lose guys there, too, that were their leaders. Now they're gone. And why the heck does James Harrison not play? Why do we even dress him? What is he, like a mascot? We have Steely McBeam. Is Steely McBeam retired, too? Is he protesting? Is he out in the parking lot because he's thinking to bring a steel beam into the stadium because it didn't fit in the clear plastic NFL bag that was given to him? Whatever. The problem is, I think it's Todd Haley. I don't think he's that good. My Facebook buddy, Larry Johnson, he used to play for the Chiefs, hated Todd Haley and hated his play calling. He even said during one of his interviews, he goes, "This guy didn't play football in high school. He played golf." True story. Look it up online. Todd Haley did not play golf. He did not play football in high school. He played golf. Golf. That's a real competitive sport where you're hitting a lot of things. Congratulations, Todd Haley. You suck too. But I don't think he's that good. I think Todd Haley's probably on the hot seat. I know a lot of other ones that are on the hot seat. Giants coach Ben McAdoo is probably not going to be coming back. Obviously, it makes sense. His team's awful. I do think Jim Harbaugh is going to make the jump to the NFL, but I'm looking at two places for him. John Fox, if he continues to lose, will probably be out in Chicago. Chicago, a place where Jim Harbaugh played. He has a young quarterback there. The other one is a weird one, and there are 2 and 3 right now, but Dallas with Jerry Jones, he's taking a lot of backlash there for everything he's doing right now. So I'm thinking that could be a shot, and could Jason Garrett finally be gone too? And if they could get Harbaugh, that would be the one. I think they're only going to go for big names. They'll probably hear Bill Cowher and John Gruden, who are not going to leave. They're getting millions of dollars being NFL commentators. That's like the easiest job in the world. They're not going to leave jobs when they only have to show up 18 games a season or 18 times. It's too easy of a job. I think Bill Cowher's making $4 or $5 million doing it. Yeah, like I'm going to leave that job. Yeah, one where I barely have to think. Congratulations. They're idiots when they say that. And I want to wish best of luck to a guy who was born in the same hometown and used to live in the same township as me. I do want to wish Frank Zolich, Ohio, the Bobcats, the best of luck. They're 4 and 2. They're going to face Bowling Green, so they should go 5 and 2 this week as well. So, but I'm not surprised with the NFL. What's happening? Ratings are lost. NFL announcers are horrible. John Gruden's even boring nowadays. And the guy next to him looks like a creepy old guy that stands like bus stops. I mean, I don't know what he's doing, but he's awful too. He bores me to death. And he looks like death.
Well,
I'm done.
We'll go with that. My last thoughts, I honestly don't think Harbaugh's going to jump to the NFL this year, just because, like Matt said, he's building it. Another thing that some people don't forget is he has young kids now in school there. I don't know how old they are, but a lot of coaches, sometimes they wait for their kids to either get through high school. I think you've seen it before with other coaches. And if that's where he feels strongly they're going, his dad lives right there. He does a podcast with his dad, so he has free time to hang out with them all the time. I just don't see him jumping right back into the fire. The reason I brought up Dylan McCaffrey earlier is maybe he'll ride it out, get one of those quarterbacks that he knows has an NFL background to have around for a few years. And if they win a championship, definitely he could make that jump at any time. But I think he has to prove it, and jumping around is not going to get it done. Unless he really starts to lose, I just don't see it happening until he either wins or he gets a quarterback like he had with Andrew Luck, where he rides him out for a few years and then takes that success to the next level just to prove that, hey, yes, I did win here. But I don't know. But yeah, the Steelers, who knows? So we'll see. Hopefully this week is a much better week because it's frustrating to watch. But we'll end with that. Went a little bit longer. Hopefully the Periscope was on. It looks like, based on my monitor, that it might have froze a while ago. I don't know what's going on with that. So if you watch on there, definitely subscribe on iTunes. The Southbound Sports Show. If you just search Southbound Sports, you can also find Jeff's show, Spaces or Laces. It comes out every Thursday. We have them separate feeds because some people, based on some feedback, only wanted one show a week or whatever. But if you want more than that, we have 2 shows now. Check those out. We're going to be getting you some tailgate content and stuff, some extra football stuff. I've been meaning to get some stats, breaking down some film. Hopefully I'll be moved in soon to get that stuff started. So check out our site. Follow us on Twitter, S-Bound Sports. Everything else, we're Southbound Sports. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next week.